I am so excited to dive into this topic today and something I've been thinking about over the last couple of months. And I really feel like this is a Holy Spirit download as I've been just building. And I did an interview, a podcast interview with Bill High a couple of days ago. And he was the one who has been close with David Green for, the last 15 plus years. He is an attorney. He started this incredible ministry for building families, their vision, their mission, their values. And I actually did an interview with Bill. And so you're going to have the pleasure of hearing that and hearing him speak and just share on family, infrastructure and values and how do you create your mission and your vision and how do you disciple your children. And so that's for a future episode. But one of the things that Bill asked me at the end of our conversation off record, which by the way, he was such a father's heart, and he took great interest in just we had a 10-minute conversation after the interview, and he was just asking questions about my story. And by the way, I'm driving right now from Whole Foods to home so that I can just keep getting back into the foxhole and getting to work. And I wanted to drop this interesting idea that I've been having. And so one of the questions that Bill asked me at the very end of our conversation, he said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I have, many times thought about it, and there's been many times I've sat down in front of my computer and it's just blank screen. And I know that, writer's block is a real thing. And so I just feel like I haven't had the download or the grace yet to sit down and write something. And so what I was excited to tell Bill, though, is that, yes, not only have I thought about it, but I actually feel like the Lord has given me a title and the substance and the content of my book. I always thought I would write, my story or the Her Effect story or something about becoming her. And so this topic actually has surprised me. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been able to not only implement in a way of, wow, this is something I've been in a process of for over 10 years. And now that I'm thinking about it in terms of what would I actually tell men and women regarding this topic, what would I actually teach? So in my idea of, I can write about this, I've actually been kind of practicing the content from a place of what would I actually tell someone or teach someone from a framework perspective. And so one of the stories I talk about a lot is, back in 2015, I was in a really crazy situation where an old pastor of mine and a bunch of men from our previous church contacted me and said, we want to start this skincare company. We want to be in this, skincare anti-aging space. Would you formulate an anti-aging serum for us? Or what product would you formulate? And I told them I would do an anti-aging serum. It's a really great market to be in. Lots of, women looking to use natural products and serum and this is before I even had any of my own anti-aging facial products. All of our line at that time was just body. And so we went through a whole progression where I formulated a product for them. And it ended up being where they sent me this contract that I sent over to my lawyer. I had been working with her at that point for just a couple of months. And she said, and had been working on Her Effect trademark stuff. And this was back in 2015 and sent it over to her. And thank goodness I had enough wisdom to actually have her look at it before I signed anything. Because what they had offered me was, we're going to pay you this lump sum for this formulation, but we need sort of an NDA contract in place to guarantee the payment once the deliveries, the deliverables have been made. And so I was like, you know what, just have a really bad feeling about this, but I'm going to send it over to my lawyer. Sent it over, and she called me within 5 minutes, which had never happened at that point. And she said, Jamie, in my 20 years of practicing law, I have never had the hair on the back of my neck stand up before. She said, if you sign this, you're signing away your entire company and all your formulations. And so that's not even the worst part of the story. So what I did was I contacted a good friend of mine who was in business, and I was like, I don't know if I have the guts to go up to these men and tell them that they need to change this contract. I just think I need to cancel the whole thing, but I just want to walk away. And that's kind of where I was as a leader, or even just as an entrepreneur at the time. I don't even know if I would have considered myself, now looking back, I don't even know if I was a leader at that time. We had led in worship and we had done that kind of thing, but in business, I wasn't really a leader yet. And I was just processing with her because one of the things that I was really dealing with was actually a spirit of intimidation and manipulation. And I have since now, having been in business, 8 years later, I have since grown to be able to really closely and quickly recognize a spirit of manipulation, a spirit of control, a spirit of intimidation. And that's how these men operated. And it wasn't just the information, or I wasn't afraid of the pushback. I was afraid of the hurtful, cutting words that they were going to use against me when I told them no. And my friend said this to me, and I've said this part of the story many times. She said, Jamie, the hardest thing you'll ever do in business is grow a backbone. And it really shook me, because I thought, man, okay. And I contacted my attorney back and I said, and we were going back and forth, and she said, Jamie, if your vision is for the her effect, you have to become that now so that you can one day help your women step in fully like you are right now. And it means facing the beast. And so sure enough, I responded to the guy who was kind of like the spokesperson and the negotiator between the contracts between me and this other group of men and the entity. And it was just me alone. And Nathan, of course, and Nathan was like, from the beginning, he's like, I don't know about this. This just doesn't seem right. He had already had a lack of trust for this group of people. And I was like, you know what? I think it's going to be a great opportunity. We can make a little bit of extra money, and me, the economic driver. And Nathan has never been forceful about any decisions either way, except for a few times. And this time it was like, okay, let's proceed with caution. And so that's what we did. We proceeded with caution. We used wisdom in the sense of we had a lawyer, leaned into that part of it. And so here I am. They're like, hey, Jamie, how come you haven't signed this contract yet? And they're like being super pushy. And finally, after 24 hours of me saying, okay, I can't sign this. I need this and this and this to change. I was on the phone with this man, and exactly what I thought was going to happen. He said, I'm not going to play around with you on this, Jamie. You either sign it, or it was like, or else. It was like he was making threats. And that feeling in the pit of my stomach, the fear of just being attacked, the fear of the verbal attack, I should say, the fear of the retaliation and how I feel when I'm being intimidated by someone. And at that point, I said, I'm sorry, I can't sign it. This has to change, or I can't engage. And so they ended up making adjustments to the contract. I delivered on the product, actually made it better than what I had put in the contract, and walked away from that situation with a little bit stronger backbone. But in this has been 8 years now of stepping more fully into entrepreneurship. And then of course we had our breakthrough in 2017 where our business just took off really quickly and started building a team, and have had multiple manipulators and intimidators even on my team, or different contractors and people who have come in, and it's almost as if the enemy has tried to steal the seed of growth from the very beginning. There's been many situations where people have stolen formulations, I've told that story many times before, but what happened inside of me in that moment was the beginning of a new journey for me as not just as an entrepreneur, but as a woman who could stand up for herself. So here I am talking to Bill High a couple days ago, and I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I really feel like the Lord has given me this book title, and I already have been sketching out concepts and stepping into this from a framework teaching perspective. And here's what the Lord showed me is leadership is not just influence. Leadership is confrontation. And I think that the book title is going to be Leadership is Confrontation. And here's the premise, is we have so many leadership gurus. Think about the top 3 people that pop up in your mind. all these people teaching leadership. You can get certified as a leader, by so-and-so, an XYZ guru who is teaching leaders, in leadership for the last 20 plus years. But what I'm seeing is a decline in true leaders, because you know what? And we all know this, leadership and leaders, it's not a title. And all while we have a decline of true leadership, we have a rise in influencers. And I think people are confused about what leadership truly is versus what influencing is. And how many of you know that you can be a leader and be an influencer, but you can be an influencer and not necessarily be a leader? And that's what I think we have today more of than the true leaders. And the real true leaders are the people who are willing to be louder than the lies as far as, confronting. People often think that leadership or that confrontation is this bad thing, or it means that I have to go against someone. And what I've learned as the Lord has taken me through this journey of becoming a leader, more of a leader, I still have a long way to go, but stepping more fully into that inner strength, that inner knowing, that being able to stand up for the truth. And here's the key. I believe that as leaders, we have to be expert truth finders and truth tellers. We have to be experts in the truth. And what a leader really does is that when lies are being lived out or lies are being spoken within our sphere. And so this is where I'm really anti-confronting people on social media or telling people about my opinions on social media. That people don't care about what we have to say on later. That's more about influencing. But when you have somebody in your sphere who, whether maybe it's an employee or a team member or somebody who is in your circle, and you have an opportunity to speak the truth, we cannot back down from that. And we can do that in a loving way. And so I've been in a situation many times, especially in the last 3 years, where certain cultures are being professed or things are being said that aren't true. Ways of doing things are counter to what is the right thing. And what I've had to do is, the old Jamie would have been we would be, let's say we'd be on a Zoom call or in a meeting or in a conversation, and somebody would say something that would be so counter to what is true. And my initial reaction is, you know what? Let them speak their mind. It's okay. I'm just going to keep living out the truth, and the truth will make itself known. But what I realize is that leadership is confrontation, and it's speaking the truth out loud. So when somebody is saying something or living out something openly for people to see that are under your authority or under your leadership, it's important that we profess and live out the truth. And so I've been in confrontational situations recently where I've had to say, no, we're not doing it that way. We're doing it this way. And for somebody who has had to learn and build that backbone in the past, it's been very difficult for me to step into that because I never want to hurt people's feelings. But what I've also realized is that when you speak the truth and hold that standard and hold the line, it builds respect and trust for all who have ears to hear. And hopefully when you're confronting the truth and when you're speaking out the truth, anyone who's maybe living out or professing the antithesis of the truth, hopefully they have ears to hear and that they have a humble heart and to say, you know what, you're right. I actually recognize where I went wrong here. And so I don't believe in going and touting from the rooftops, my personal beliefs. But when somebody is in my sphere of influence who has said, yes, I want to be a part of what you're doing, whether it's working for your company or, yes, I want to be a part of your movement within your wellness, your functional beauty business, then what they're doing is saying, I want to do things the way that the truth that you've established, Jamie. And so I have an obligation, a moral obligation as a leader and somebody who has committed to building people. I have an obligation to hold the line for that truth and speak it out loud so that when lies are being said, those who have ears to hear can come under the truth. And so if you don't make your voice heard in those situations, if you let the lies perpetuate, and I hope I'm making sense here, because we've also had a lot of situation where people have stepped out of our sphere and they start saying things that aren't true about our business, or they say things that aren't true about me. And I've learned to let go of those things very quickly. But I've also learned that like we can't be chasing all of those situations. But what we can do when I've gone to the Lord and said, well, what's my part to play in this? It's use your voice and get louder than the lies. And so educating people, showing up in your groups, empowering your team, and just speaking the truth and living the truth, speaking the truth in love. And what you'll find is people will learn to respect you, they will trust you, and it will actually increase the speed of trust. If you have healthy confrontational skills, then you will begin to lead more powerfully, and people will become edified, and they will be built up by that. And so I want to empower you right now. Something I'm working on right now with this whole idea of this book is that leadership is confrontation. Nathan's like, you should have the word influence crossed out. And so we'll see, what kind of taglines we come up with. But leadership is not just influencing. It's not just living it out. It's sometimes actually confronting words that are being spoken openly in front of your people that you need to confront openly so that the people listening can hear the truth. And I think as I flesh this concept out, it's going to be communicated more clearly. But I wanted to share this with you because I think that there are a lot of women who are maybe in leadership, or whether it's in business or in church or leadership in your home. And sometimes it's easy to become quiet about what people should be saying and doing. And again, wherever you have been given authority is where you need to speak the truth. If you don't have an authority over a certain type of, this is why I don't get public about, certain ideas, because I'm like, these people are not under my authority and they don't have an obligation to hold the culture that I'm building or whatever the case may be. But if you are in a situation where the truth is not being lived out and spoken by people who are under your authority, then you have an obligation to hold the line on for the truth and speak it out loud and live it out loud and do it in love in such a way where it's like, it doesn't have to be confrontational against any person. It's, hey, if these words are being spoken, then I'm going to actually overcome the lies by speaking the truth and making the truth louder than the lies. I hope this encourages you. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have questions or ideas or thoughts, or even a situation or circumstance where you've had to grow a backbone, or where you've questioned, should I be more outspoken about this particular thing? I would love to hear from you. And remember, wherever this comes down to where have you been given authority? That is where you can step in fully and get louder than the lies and confront those lies, because leaders do that, and they do it with love. And leadership is confrontation. It's not just influence. Have a great day. Can't wait to see you more on the next episode. And I'll also tell you a funny story. As I've been building more content strategy and more content with my team, our director was like, Jamie, you gotta get better with your outros. Here's some ideas for you. And so I'm still working on my outros. I'll see you on the next episode doesn't always make sense, but this is part of the process. So love you all. Keep stepping in fully, keep being strengthened by the Lord, and let him take you through the journey. The Bible says that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. So continue to submit to that process. Watch what happens on the other side. Talk soon. See you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's show. Hit subscribe or follow, and be sure to share this episode with a friend.